Hey everybody, welcome back to Super Comic Fun Times Free Comic Book Day week, day 2. That's a mouthful. So today I actually got through quite a few of the books. I got through 4 books today, which is good. So like first some general housekeeping. I'm going to try to do a show tomorrow. I won't be able to do one Thursday because I'm going to a party. And then I just really want to get through all of the free comic books. I already got my folder loaded up. I forget what I loaded up for tomorrow, but they are definitely not. I think I got that one manga, the one that you read backwards. That's in there, and I forget what else I put in there. They're not like mainstream titles that I can necessarily remember the name of. Yeah, one even looks like it might be some weird furry stuff. A bunch of like kind of anime foxes and anthropomorphic people like that. So when I saw that, I go, I don't know that I'm going to like this one, but I put it in the pile anyways. I'm going to try to go through everything that I did get. So today we have at least 2 very good books that I think stand on their own and are worth reading, and then the other 2 they're okay. They're kind of more like a taste, a sampling. They're not complete stories in themselves. And I'm going to start with Marvel. Now I watched one of. Oh wait, before that, I just remembered. It's because of this book. This is the Free Comic Book Day Amazing Spider-Man. I just remembered, diversity in comics. He's got the Indiegogo going on, and so if you do want to support that, I do have the link below. There's only about a day left. That's all it says at the Indiegogo. And let me just look here real quick. They're like over 140,000. Like right now, they are at 147,977. So that's pretty good. They just need what is it, $23 to reach 150,000, which will unlock the next stretch goal, which is Richard Meyer, John Malin, and Brett Smith, the creative team of Jawbreakers, Lost Souls, will have a store convention appearance together where somewhere in 2018 in the continental United States, location to be voted on by fans. So, it's very exciting. They're almost there. They're just like, I'm pretty sure by the time it ends, they will be there. But if you were planning on donating to this Indiegogo, you just have hours left. Like, it doesn't even give me the exact hours. It just said like a day. Let me just look again. Where did it go? Here we go. So it just says a day left. So I don't know. I mean, obviously it doesn't mean exactly 24 hours, because when I first started setting up for this video, it said that, and it was about $60 lower, something like that. I can't remember. It was like it jumped up since I started doing this video, getting ready to do the live cast. So I wanted to say that first before I jump into these books. Now, the reason I remembered this book is because Diversity in Comics said something like people were running away from this book, but I rather enjoyed it. The very positive, the artwork wasn't quite to my liking, like especially if you look here and you see Peter. I don't know what style of art this is. It isn't necessarily for me, but the story was good enough that I enjoyed it. So what happens in this is like Peter and Randy Robertson, Robbie Robertson's son, are looking for a place to stay. In a way, it's the artwork is almost too cartoony for me. I kind of remember when Robbie was worried about his son, like his son. I'm not sure, I'm not sure where this is in continuity. I kind of remember he had a white girlfriend or something like that, and Robbie was worried about it because, he just knows that it's hard enough being a black man in this world, and, being an interracial couple just made it harder. And that was back in the 70s, I think that was happening. I don't remember exactly. So again, I don't know where this takes place in the continuity, but like here you've got, like, I wasn't even sure that was Peter. Like on the first page, I thought it was Peter. I mean, it looks kind of enough like Peter that I thought it was him, like looking out that window in there. But then in this, this shot was just really weird. So that's pretty much my criticism of the art. but the story was good enough that I ended up not really minding about the art. So, you know, Robbie and Randy are looking for a place, and they're making some commentary about the high prices, even though New York is constantly invaded by aliens and whatnot, and how these pop-up stores are always showing up in the rubble. Like they talk about this kind of noodle place. Let me just see if I can find this pretty bad joke real quick. No, I can't find it. We're going to just move on. So anyways, like then you have the Rhino, Boomerang, and this female version of Electro. I don't really know what happened to the other version of Electro, and then you have this guy in the wheel and the Rhino. Quite honestly, the Rhino doesn't do much in this story that I recall. So, I mean, okay, yeah, I guess so. Like, Peter tricks him into running into the car. So, you know, oh, spoilers. I'm just going to spoil this. It's a free comic book. You probably got it and read it already, or you didn't. So then the very good tactic he uses is, you know, he gets he gets between the wheel guy and Electro, and he gets her to short circuit it, but then it starts running into like this place where people are eating. And so you've got this very typical scene, like a mother and the baby trying to get the baby out, and just stop seconds before. Ah, that was so tense. I was so unbelievably tense in that. Like maybe they would have got crushed. Yeah, right. So, so then it turns out that the Kingpin, Fisk, is the mayor at this time, and that sounds kind of interesting to me. It kind of reminds me of like Lex Luthor becoming president of the United States in the Superman continuity back around just after the death of Superman. Today I'm enjoying a hemp beer from it's the kind with the bicycle. I can't remember the brewery, but I like their beers. This is made out of hemp. It's got this really funny aroma to it. Like when you first open the bottle, it smells like skunk, but I really enjoy the taste. And it's milder than most IPAs. So it's supposed to be a hemp IPA, and on the bottle they call it an HPA. So cheers. And I'm really enjoying that one right now. So yesterday I had the double IPA. This hemp one is good too. The other one I really like is Fantasy Factory's IPA. I mostly just drink IPAs now. And when I do change it up, I like a porter. So, you know, just if anybody was interested, probably not. So anyways, like the Kingpin shows up, and then like the Boomerang, you know, well, like the weird thing is like the Kingpin is on SpiderMan's side. And I kind of remember back in some comic book way back in the 70s when I was a really young kid, it's like the Kingpin told Spider-Man, it's like, you know, you're more of an asset to me than a problem. It's like, yeah, every so often you fight me, but you actually keep the other crime down so that my organization can flourish. So, you know, so here, like the cops, they put their arms on Peter, and Kingpin goes, "Officers, what are you doing? Unhand that man." But, Mr. Mayor, it's Spider-Man, you know, threat or menace. So, and then like there's this kind of joke about reading the newspaper ironically. Oh, it got like kind of a thing floating there. And so Spider-Man makes the comment, "Hey, at least this guy reads the newspaper unironically even." So so yeah, and then like that's when the Boomerang guy gives Kingpin this satchel. Like they'd robbed an art museum or something, and it was like there's a joke about how, oh, let's rob an art museum, he says. Nobody's going to care, he says. They're all watching Netflix, he says. And then like they're being chased, and then Spider-Man shows up, and then like so then the cops go ahead and take Boomerang, but then they're like talking about the boomerangs they confiscate off of him, and he says, "You missed one actually, the Jetarang. On brand, suckers, enjoy the taste, Fisk." I still got the real prize. So like then Spider-Man just kind of flies away, and Fisk is like, "Spider-Man, where are you going? A criminal is at large." And he goes, "Tell me about it. I heard they might even make him mayor." He's your problem now, Fisk. So Spider-Man just decides to let him go until he can figure out what Fisk is actually up to. And then, and besides, he says Randy had texted him that they found a place. So Peter comes to this place, and it's got a skylight, which in a previous continuity, that, you know, he lived in an apartment alone, and he would use the skylight to come in and out of the apartment as Spider-Man. It worked out well for him, but Randy called dibs on the best the best bedroom in whatever apartment they got, since he was bailing on him to become Spider-Man. Blah, blah, blah. And then it just turns out that there's a third roommate, and it just happens to be Boomerang. So I don't know. I enjoyed this story. It was pretty good. Here's this nice pinup here. I really like that too. So here, you know, like the Spider-Man art, like I kind of feel like on Peter Parker, they didn't do a very good job of making it look like Peter Parker. As Spider-Man, it's okay. I mean, this style of art isn't my favorite, but, you know, I kind of like that pinup anyways. Then the second half of this book was a little boring. It was about the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it kind of was just a synopsis. You have all of this stuff to kind of look at and try to put together. And I made it through it, but I didn't like it. I kind of like the story elements I did pick up on. I didn't like the way they told it here. And so anyways, you've got this. The story continues in Infinity Countdown Prime, Infinity Countdown 1, 2, and 3. And they're all on sale now. So maybe next time I'm at my comic book shop, I will see if I can pick those up. Because, like I say, the elements of the story were interesting. This way of telling it, I didn't like it. And then, like, the Spider-Man book. Oh, this is something that's coming up, too, is, like, I guess, what's her name? Kitty Pryde and Colossus are getting married, and that's supposed to be on sale now or sometime this month, May 2018. So I'm going to try to pick that one up because it's the return of Chris Claremont, who, you know, God, from like the 70s to the 90s, I think, until like Marvel kicked him out more or less. He was the X-Men guy, and every time they added a new book, he would like write those books too. I mean, at least what I'm remembering from Marvel, The Untold Story, and that other book that I can never remember the name of, Slugfest, I think it was, about DC and Marvel. I'm sorry, I can hear my sinuses clogging up. That's very annoying. You know, send me some healing white light for my allergies, please. I think that I'm getting to that point now where that's what I need. So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this book, and I kind of went into it a little prejudiced. Well, two reasons is like I started reading it, like this beginning stuff here. It's like people think they know why I became Spider-Man, but let me tell you why I really became Spider-Man. It's for the view. And I thought, I kind of groaned there. But then when I started reading it today, and so like it was after I read that part where I was already prejudiced from reading it, that somebody else had kind of prejudiced me against it even more. But I was going to read it regardless, and I did, and I'm glad I did. This is one of the better ones. I still think it's the Meta Baron is the best one, and one in this pile is even better than this one. So let's talk about the next one in the pile, which is Lady Mechanika. I keep wanting to say Melcania, like Melancholy. I keep wanting to say Melancholia, which is a movie I've never seen, but I've heard is good. So this book, you know, the artwork is pretty good. This is steampunk fiction, and I've never really read steampunk. There was a TV show I saw a long time ago about Jules Verne. I think it might have been called The Adventures of Jules Verne, and that had a steampunk element to it. For the most part, I enjoyed the art in this one, except when it was like in combat, and there were like a couple of scenes where it's in combat. I don't know if you can see this here. I could not tell what was going on. So she's chasing this creature, and then she fires, and I you know, just trying to follow these panels, they didn't make any sense to me. Was she shooting through a door? Like, what's this here? I didn't know that. So you know, here though, I thought, like, you know, where she's throwing the punch, I thought that was kind of good. So anyway, she's chasing this creature. This story is actually called The Demon of Satan's Alley. And I guess this is a reprint. This might be in the main book. I'm not exactly sure. So she's chasing this thing because, you know, she's half mechanical, half organic. And so this demon has been terrorizing Satan's Alley, I guess. So she doesn't remember her past, and so she kind of chases this thing. And that's the main story, is she doesn't remember her past. So like she finally says, okay, I don't want to kill you. And so he, or the demon, I don't know if it's a he or a she, just kind of says, okay, I won't fight anymore. And she did hit it with a dart, so it's drugged, but then it's also hungry. I thought this was very interesting because it's hungry and she just happens to have an apple. Very symbolic. Like, you know, apples usually represent sex in some way. Even, you know, a little boy giving the apple to the teacher, that was a sexual act, you know. We don't realize it because it is so innocent and it's so subconscious. But so this was kind of a weird scene here. But then, like, what ends up, and I'm going to spoil all these books because they were free, and, you know, you can go and get them. You can probably find them still for free on Comixology. So then, you know, while she's talking to this thing, it's telling her, like, you know, she goes, well, you're very polite, because he keeps saying please and thank you. And it goes, well, Master always said to be polite, you know, and that sort of thing. But then it recognizes her, and like its name is Ucky. And it says that she gave it its name, but she doesn't remember any of it. So she's kind of hoping it'll lead it back. And then all of these guys just sort of show up and shoot the poor little monster. And so she ends up at a dead end. And then we're kind of introduced to some villains here. So this guy is the guy who wanted the demon alive to kind of study it. And like, he's kind of pissed, but then if he can't take the demon, he'll take Lady Mechanika, but she escapes because she's just way too good. And then we get a second story here, and she talks about how, like, it was many years after that she got another lead as to who she might be, and like this guy just shows up at her house one night, and he used to work at this as an engineer in this sort of I guess it would be like the Apple computers of its time or something like that. And he got fired for some reason, but he's also been drinking, so she doesn't necessarily trust him. But she eventually believes him, and he tells her how she might be able to get into the building, and where this mechanical arm, that's what, and this is a pretty good scene. I really like this scene. It kind of tells you everything. And this one I could follow, but there's a combat scene coming up in a few minutes where I couldn't follow it. It's like this whole scene is telling her how to break in, through a certain window, and then exactly what floor he has to go to. There's an engineer there. She convinces him to open the vault, even though the arm is stuck in the vault. She sees the arm, and it's an exact duplicate of hers. She drugs the guy, and then a bunch of security shows up because the guy had hit a secret alarm. And then those guys said, like, yeah, here's like a combat scene. I could not follow this. And it turned out that a lot of these guys were also taken out by somebody else who wasn't her. And it just turns out to be somebody else who comes from the same place that she does, and might even be a clone of her. I'm not exactly sure. But, she also, the new woman seems to know who Lady Mechanika is. But what she does is she leaves a bomb, and so Lady Mechanika has morals, so she has to get this old engineer that she drugged out, and she throws everybody else into the vault so that they'll be safe, closes the door, and then she takes off running, and by the time she gets there, the other Lady Mechanika is gone. So, this one was just okay. It wasn't great. Neither of the stories felt like complete stories. We didn't really, like in the Spider-Man book, we had Fisk, who we know is a bad guy. In the Meta Baron book, there wasn't really a bad guy, and I didn't talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that one because I still have hopes I could do a review of that one, like a straight-up review. So, yeah, I would say, like, it gives you a taste of her adversaries, but there isn't really an adversary, and these were just kind of story snippets, not really stories, but it was okay. I enjoyed it well enough. It's just the combat scenes I could not follow very well. And I had that same problem, you'll remember, with the Green Lantern books. I've mentioned that on a number of occasions. Like I read Rebirth, which was great, and no problems with that one at all. Sinestro War, like after the first chapter or two, it's like everybody's in space and telling quips and stuff, and I could not tell who was fighting who. And so I don't necessarily like that sort of thing. Okay, next up, we have my favorite cover of the bunch. I love this cover. The three doctors here, and this book has 3 stories in it. And this first one, what's her name? Gabby Gonzalez. We just, it's basically her falling through space and, remembering adventures with the Doctor. And she seems to be with the 10th Doctor, which really there's only one Doctor. This whole thing about saying like the first Doctor, the 10th Doctor, the 4th Doctor, it just confuses things. There's only one Doctor. He just has many faces. So anyways, this is the David Tennant Doctor. That's the way I like to say it, is the actor who portrayed the Doctor at the time. And so, I guess she had all these adventures with him, and then she falls out of the TARDIS somehow. Don't exactly know how. They don't really go into it because that's not the point of the story. But then she's falling through space, and she's kind of getting okay with her death. And, I guess like it's sort of like her life passing before her eyes, all of her friends. She said the things that are most memorable about her travels with the Doctor are the friendships she's made, not necessarily the monsters they fought or the worlds they saved or whatever. So then she gets saved by the Peter Capaldi Doctor. So, she's falling through space, and then she falls into the TARDIS again, but it's like sometime in the future, a different, a Doctor with a different face grabs her, and that's the end of the story. And it just says the adventure continues this November. It was interesting enough. Again, it's like the Lady Mechanika thing. Then this next story, we have one of my favorite actors impersonating the Doctor of all time, Sylvester McCoy. Now, he was the last from the series until it took its hiatus. Like, I guess it had 2 hiatuses. It had like a hiatus from like 1987, I think, until 1996 when they did the made-for-TV movie, and then from 1996 until Christopher Eccleston took on the role in, was it 2004, 2005, when it was rebooted, and that's the show that most people are familiar with these days. But this is the Sylvester McCoy Doctor, and this is Ace. And she was like the last companion when, up until 96 or so. The other great thing about, if you never saw the made-for-TV Doctor Who movie, is Sylvester McCoy was gracious enough to do the role again, so that they could have the transition, the regeneration scene. So this was fun for me. I really had a lot of fun seeing it. But again, the story was kind of blah. There's like just these aliens, and the Doctor keeps giving them chances to do the right thing, and eventually they surrender. And then they are on this kind of hanging out when the cloister bell goes off, and then we get another to be continued in the 7th Doctor, Operation Volcano. So I don't know. I think this one might be my favorite of the 3 stories in this book. Then we have the Matt Smith Doctor here, and he's hungry, so he goes to this diner. These 2 aliens are about to, they're kind of negotiating in the diner, and he goes, "Look, guys, I'm hungry. I don't want any trouble. Why don't you just settle it over a dish of ice cream?" And apparently that's all it takes for intergalactic diplomacy. And this whole story is not very satisfying. This is probably the weakest one in this book. Is it just relies too heavily on his fish sticks and custard thing. So he goes to the diner, and that's the first thing he tries, and he's trying all this weird food. Then he comes back home, and I don't know who his companion is here, but she's making a tuna fish sandwich. I don't even know why. I thought, oh, was she in the TARDIS? Why is the Doctor? Why? I don't know what's going on here. Anyway, so he It turns out tuna fish is the different thing he's kind of looking for. And then, you know, he convinces her to try something new. And so, which I don't know why I would prefer a tuna fish sandwich to something this color. She tries to eat this blue stuff and it tastes horrible. You can tell it's really horrible. So that was that book. Yeah, I really like the Sylvester McCoy part of this one. I really love the cover, my favorite cover of all of them. I'm trying to think if this is the weakest one I've read so far. I don't remember what I've done, so I'm sorry. I'll have to watch my video from yesterday. But now we come to the new high point. Well, the next high point, The Tick. This was a really great book. It was funny. I've never read The Tick as a comic book. This is very close. My understanding is like in the 90s, there was a TV show. The TV show was based on the comic book, but it really didn't have anything to do with the comic book per se. Like they were kind of different characters. And I remember going to a comic book store at the time because I was always trying to get back into comic books. And I found a copy of The Tick and I read like the first panel or two. And it was a completely different character from the cartoon show, so I didn't care. But this one is like the cartoon Tick. And this was very funny. You know, the artwork is really great. So he ends up like, he's on this planet or something, and, you know, he's on this feldspar throne, and these guys are telling him that, you know, there was this prophecy that he would be their king, but that he would die a horrible death because he had, like, you know, this wizard came and had this gem, like Thanos, and, oh yeah, right here, and Thanos, and, like, you know, he cursed their town, and then he went to this high place and where the gem was, and then eventually he died, but he left a dragon to guard it, so the Tick has to go in and take care of it. And, you know, I'm not doing justice to it because you want to get this book if you can still find it, because it was funny. I mean, it has all these great moments in it. Like, you know, he's kind of, you know, because the prophecy is a prophecy, he thinks, well, you know, it's great being king, but I don't necessarily want to die. And you know, I'm not telling you any of the jokes because jokes, it takes skill to tell a joke, and I don't have that skill. Otherwise, I would probably become a comedian. But yeah, so I highly recommend this book. If you didn't pick it up on New Comic Book Day, if it's free on Comixology, check it out there. Check it out somewhere. Then he fights these cows, and that's really funny. And then he makes it in, and he gets the gem, and he thinks it's going to be easy to destroy. And then this dragon, you know, you see this dragon here, but you think it's a statue or something, but then it turns out that it's a real dragon that starts fighting him. But in fighting him, it breaks the gem. It starts eating him. But then, like, you know, he comes out and he realizes that those cows were people. And then he's like saying, don't eat, you know, don't eat grass. Like I say, like, it's really funny. The people who wrote this, you know, like, I guess I should have been telling you who the writers are and whatnot, but this one says story by Jeff McClelland, art by Ian Nichols, concept by Ben Edlund. So yeah, this is like one of the better books I've picked up on New Comic Book. You know, like when I watched Captain Cummings' video yesterday, he says it's usually a wash. I would say the Meta Baron, the SpiderMan, the Avengers, and this one so far. So that's 4 books out of, like, how many did I get? I think I got 13 in total. Well, one of them I got twice, which might have been a mistake. But yeah, and then, like, here's like just a little funny one. You know, it's just funny, like, when you're reading it. I don't know if it would translate well if I told you this story, but the artwork is fun. So this one has to do with pizza and delivery boy being robbed and whatnot. And then this is just like a one-panel cartoon, not much going here. But then we have this character. This is Rubber Ducky, and this is Bee Girl or something. They're getting married, and the Tick is, like, objecting to their marriage, but it turns out it's only a rehearsal. This story was hilarious. You guys, you got to check this book out if you haven't checked it out. If you like good, funny comic, you know, and this, like, I don't remember why this is, but the moon has the CHA. I remember that from the cartoon show. Like, somebody was going to deface the moon, but I don't remember the story at all. But it's, you know, if you like the cartoon show as opposed to the original comic book, which I don't know anything about, you'll love this book. This book is great. This is, like, yeah, I would say Meta-Baron and this one are the two best ones, but then Spider-Man and the Avengers book were no slouches. And, you know, even Lady Mechanika, you don't know who she is, but I enjoyed the artwork in that one. And the Doctor Who book, you know, all of these have some values. I wouldn't say any of them are necessarily a wash. They're, you know, some of them are just okay. But so that's where we are now. Let's see, I've got 3 in my folder I take to work. And then I got 2 left after that. So I think I've got 5 more of these free books to get through that I've got. And I don't know about that for sure. I might have more. I'll have to look through it. But I do want to finish all of the free comic books this week and then move on to other things. And, you know, this has been kind of fun. So, you know, did you get the tick? Let me know if you got the tick. If you didn't get the tick, why didn't you get the tick? That was, you know, it's a great book. The Spider-Man book was pretty good. Now, the books I missed out on, I didn't realize this until I watched somebody else doing a video on it, is I missed the DC books. Like the first place I went to, I could only get 3 books. So for whatever reason there, I mean, I was starting out the day. This was more or less my first real free comic book day. And so limited to 3 books. I took the 2 Marvel books and the Meta-Baron. And then I don't remember seeing the books at the Westfield store. And those are really the only 2 stores that were participating in free comic book day as such that I stopped in. So, you know, if you got the DC books, let me know what you thought about those. And so, yeah, we're going to bring this to a close now. I'm going to do another video tomorrow. Thursday, we're going to skip. And if there's anything left to do for Free Comic Book Day, we'll finish that on Friday. So remember to like the video, subscribe. Love you guys. Super Comic Fun Time out. See you.